My hands trembled as I balanced 3 plates of pasta along my forearm, weaving through the maze of white-clothed tables at Belle Notte. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy, clinking glasses, laughter, and the rich scent of garlic and tomato sauce hanging in the air. I'd been on my feet for 10 hours straight, and my black non-slip shoes felt like concrete blocks. Table 7, Sarah. And don't mess it up this time, Marco hissed as I passed the bar, his voice barely audible over Dean Martin crooning from hidden speakers. I nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. 3 more hours, just 3 more hours, and I could go home to my tiny apartment, kick off these shoes, and collapse. The thought of my daughter Lily's photo tucked in my apron pocket gave me the strength to straighten my shoulders. Everything I did, every exhausting shift, every fake smile, every humiliation I swallowed, was for her. The world tilted slightly as I approached table 7, the edges of my vision darkening. I blinked hard, willing the dizziness away. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not when rent was due in 3 days and Lily needed new shoes. Fettuccine Alfredo, I announced, lowering the first plate before a silver-haired woman dripping in pearls. Spaghetti bolognese, the second plate went to a man in an expensive suit, and the third plate never made it. The room spun violently, sounds stretching and distorting like a warped record. My knees buckled, and I felt myself falling. I heard the crash of ceramic before everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on something soft in a dimly lit room. The first thing I noticed was the silence, a stark contrast to the restaurant chaos. The second was the scent, expensive cologne with notes of cedar and something darker, almost dangerous. My eyelids fluttered open to find myself on a black leather sofa in what appeared to be an office. "She's awake," a deep voice said from somewhere to my right. I tried to sit up too quickly, and the room tilted again. A firm hand pressed against my shoulder, easing me back down. "Slowly," the voice commanded. Not harsh, but with an undercurrent of authority that made my spine tingle. When my vision cleared, I found myself looking up at a man I'd never seen before. He sat on the edge of the sofa, studying me with dark, calculating eyes. Everything about him screamed power, from his perfectly tailored black suit to the heavy gold watch glinting at his wrist. His face could have been carved from marble. High cheekbones, a straight nose, and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. "Who?" My voice cracked, and I realized how thirsty I was. As if reading my mind, he reached for a glass of water on a nearby table and handed it to me. I took it with shaking hands, noticing the way his eyes tracked every movement. "Drink," he said. "Then we'll talk about why one of my waitresses is working herself to the point of collapse in my restaurant." His restaurant? My stomach dropped. Marco had mentioned the owner was visiting tonight, but I'd been too busy to pay attention. I'd never seen the man who signed my paychecks, but I'd heard whispers. Dominic Russo, the man who owned not just Belle Notte, but half the businesses in this part of the city. The man some called the Don. I took a sip of water, trying to gather my thoughts. "I'm sorry, Mr. Russo. It won't happen again." His expression remained impassive, but something flickered in those dark eyes. "You know who I am." It wasn't a question. "Yes," I whispered, suddenly aware of how alone we were in this room. Where was Marco? Or any of the other staff? Dominic leaned slightly closer, and I caught another whiff of that intoxicating cologne. "And you are Sarah Moretti, 26 years old, single. Been working here for..." He paused, as if consulting a mental file. 4 months and 13 days. The precision of his knowledge sent a chill down my spine. Why would a man like him memorize details about a nobody waitress? "How did I get here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I carried you," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for a Mafia boss to personally tend to a fainting waitress. "You caused quite a scene out there. Dropped an entire plate of ossobuco on Mrs. Cellini's new Prada handbag." I groaned, covering my face with my hands. "I'll pay for it. Please, just don't fire me. I need this job." When I lowered my hands, I found him watching me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He wasn't looking at me like an employer concerned about a liability. He was looking at me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "When did you last eat, Sarah?" he asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to lie, then closed it. Something told me this man would know if I wasn't truthful. Yesterday morning, I admitted. I've been stretching things until payday. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And sleep? I shrugged, uncomfortable under his scrutiny. 4 hours a night, maybe? I work double shifts most days. He stood abruptly, crossing to a sleek desk in the corner of the office. That ends now. My heart sank. This was it. I was getting fired. Please, Mr. Russo, call me Dominic, he interrupted, his back to me as he opened a drawer. And I'm not firing you. I'm promoting you. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. What? He turned, holding something in his hand. Starting Monday, you'll work as my personal assistant. The hours are better, and the pay is triple what you make now. The room seemed to spin again, but for an entirely different reason. I don't understand. You don't even know me. I know enough. He approached, extending his hand. Do we have a deal? That's when I noticed what he was holding. My breath froze in my lungs. In his palm lay the worn photograph I kept in my apron pocket. Lily's smiling face looked up at me. Her chubby 1-year-old cheeks dimpled and her dark curls framing her face like a halo. Where did you get that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It fell out of your pocket when you fainted. His eyes dropped to the photo, then back to my face. She has your eyes. I reached for the picture, but he held it just beyond my grasp. Beautiful child, he continued, studying the photo. Lily, yes? That's what it says on the back. The way he said my daughter's name made something protective and primal rise within me. I pushed myself up, ignoring the dizziness. Give that back, I demanded, with more courage than I felt. To my surprise, he complied, placing the photo in my outstretched hand. But as I took it, his fingers brushed mine, lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Where is she now, Sarah? His voice was soft, but there was something in his tone that made it clear he expected an answer. With a neighbor, I said cautiously. She watches Lily while I work. He nodded, as if confirming something to himself. And her father? The question hit like a slap. I clutched the photo tighter, my knuckles whitening. Not in the picture. Dominic's expression darkened. His choice or yours? His, I admitted, hating the vulnerability in my voice. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. His name? Why do you care? I asked, genuine confusion overriding my caution. He smiled then, a slow, predatory curve of his lips that never reached his eyes. Let's just say I have a particular interest in men who abandon their responsibilities. A chill ran down my spine. I'd heard rumors about what happened to people who crossed Dominic Russo. It doesn't matter. He's gone. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Everything matters, Sarah, especially the things people try to hide. Before I could respond, a sharp knock broke the tension. The door opened a crack, and a man with shoulders like a linebacker peered in. I recognized him as one of the silent, suited men who occasionally appeared at the restaurant, speaking to no one but watching everything. Boss, Carletti's here, the man said, his eyes flicking briefly to me before returning to Dominic. Tell him to wait, Dominic replied, not looking away from me. The man hesitated, which seemed to irritate Dominic. Is there a problem, Antonio? He says it's urgent, about the shipment. Dominic's jaw tightened. Fine. 5 minutes. As the door closed, he turned back to me. It seems our conversation will have to be continued another time. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek black card, pressing it into my palm next to the photo of Lily. My private number, he said. Call me tomorrow morning. We'll discuss the details of your new position. His eyes held mine. And Sarah? Don't even think about not calling. The threat was velvet-wrapped steel. I swallowed hard, nodding. Good. He stepped back. Antonio will drive you home now. I don't want you taking the subway in your condition. That's not necessary. It wasn't a suggestion. He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. Oh, and Sarah? Make sure you eat something tonight. I need my assistant healthy. With that, he was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of his cologne and the weight of his card in my hand. I stared at the embossed letters, Dominic Russo, with a phone number underneath, nothing else. A man like him didn't need a title. As I gathered myself to leave, a terrible thought struck me. The way he'd looked at Lily's photo, the questions about her father, the sudden job offer. What if this wasn't random? What if Dominic Russo already knew who I was before tonight? But that was impossible. I was nobody, just a single mother struggling to make ends meet. I had nothing a man like him could possibly want. Unless... I shoved the thought away as Antonio appeared at the door, his expression making it clear that keeping Dominic waiting wasn't an option. I tucked Lily's photo and the business card safely in my pocket and followed him out, trying to ignore the voice in my head whispering that I'd just made a deal with the devil. And deals with the devil always came with a price. The black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to my apartment building, looking as out of place on my rundown street as a diamond in a coal mine. Antonio hadn't spoken a single word during the 20-minute drive, his eyes constantly scanning the road, one hand resting near his jacket where I suspected he carried a weapon. The silence had been oppressive, giving me too much time to think about what had just happened. "Wait," Antonio said as I reached for the door handle. It was the first word he'd spoken, and it froze me in place. He got out, surveyed the area, then opened my door. "Boss's orders. I walk you to your door." I wanted to argue, but something in his expressionless face told me it would be pointless. My building wasn't dangerous, just old and neglected, with flickering hallway lights and the perpetual smell of someone cooking cabbage. But as we climbed the 3 flights of stairs, the elevator had been temporarily out of order for the 2 years I'd lived there. I found myself seeing it through Antonio's eyes. The graffiti on the walls, the broken tile in the hallway, the suspicious stains on the carpet. "This is me," I said when we reached 3C. "Thank you for the ride." Antonio didn't leave. He stood there, his broad shoulders nearly spanning the narrow hallway, waiting. I sighed, fishing my keys from my purse and unlocking the 3 deadbolts I'd installed after moving in. The door swung open to reveal Mrs. Patel, my elderly neighbor, dozing in my threadbare armchair with a book open on her lap. At the sound of the door, she startled awake, her eyes widening when she saw Antonio looming behind me. "Sarah? Is everything all right?" Her gaze darted between us, hands clutching her cardigan closed at her throat. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Patel. This is, a colleague from work." The lie felt clumsy on my tongue. Antonio nodded once to Mrs. Patel, then to me. "The boss will be expecting your call." With that, he turned and left, his heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway. Mrs. Patel watched him go, then turned to me with raised eyebrows. "Colleague?" "It's complicated," I said, dropping my purse on the kitchen counter. "How was Lily today?" The diversion worked. Mrs. Patel's face softened as it always did when talking about my daughter. "An angel, as always. She's been asleep for about 2 hours. Had a bit of a cough earlier, but nothing serious." My heart squeezed. "A cough? Did she feel warm?" "No fever," Mrs. Patel assured me. "Just a little throat tickle, I think." I gave her some warm honey water. I nodded, already moving toward the bedroom Lily and I shared. "Thank you for staying late. I'll have your money on Monday, I promise." Mrs. Patel waved away my concerns as she gathered her things. "No rush, Beta. You know I adore that little girl." After seeing her out and relocking the doors, I crept into the bedroom. Lily lay in her toddler bed against the wall, one arm wrapped around the stuffed elephant she couldn't sleep without. In the dim glow of her nightlight, I could see her dark curls splayed across the pillow, her long eyelashes casting shadows on her cheeks. I touched a hand to her forehead, cool, thank God, and pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. "Everything's going to be okay now," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "Mommy's got a new job working for a man who made people disappear, a man who'd looked at my daughter's photo with too much interest, a man who could probably crush us both without a second thought. What had I gotten myself into? Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay in my bed across from Lily's, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of my encounter with Dominic Russo. The intensity of his gaze, the authority in his voice, the way he'd said Lily's name. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. Dominic was just a businessman, albeit one with questionable connections, who needed an assistant. He'd seen a competent employee having a bad day and made a pragmatic decision. The interest in Lily was just normal human curiosity, nothing sinister. I almost believed it. Lily woke at 6, as she always did, climbing into my bed and patting my cheeks with her small hands. "Mama, up," she demanded, her voice still raspy with sleep. I pulled her close, breathing in her baby shampoo scent. "Good morning, sweetheart. Are you feeling better?" She nodded against my chest, hungry. At least that was normal. I carried her to the kitchen, settling her in her high chair while I prepared oatmeal with sliced banana, the cheapest breakfast I could make nutritious. As she ate, I sipped black coffee and stared at Dominic's card on the counter. "Call me tomorrow morning. Don't even think about not calling." Lily banged her spoon against the tray. "More, please," I smiled, scraping the last bit from the pot into her bowl. "That's all we have, baby. Mama will get groceries later, okay?" With Lily occupied, I picked up my phone and the card, my finger hovering over the keypad. It was only 7:30. Too early to call? But something told me Dominic Russo was an early riser and that he wouldn't appreciate being kept waiting. Before I could talk myself out of it, I dialed the number. He answered on the first ring, Sarah. Not a question. He'd been expecting my call, maybe even waiting for it. "Mr. Russo," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Dominic," he corrected, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Did you eat last night?" The question caught me off guard, just as it had in his office. "Yes." "And this morning?" I glanced at Lily, happily mashing banana into her oatmeal. "We both did." There was a brief silence on the other end, and I could almost feel him processing the "we." "Good. I'm sending a car for you. Be ready in 30 minutes. "But it's Saturday," I protested. "I can't leave my daughter." "Bring her," he interrupted. "I need to see what kind of childcare arrangements we'll need to make." A chill ran through me. "Childcare arrangements? Your new position requires travel. Sometimes at short notice." His tone was matter-of-fact. "The car will be there at 8. Don't make me send Antonio to fetch you." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, panic rising in my chest. This was moving too fast. I should call back, tell him I'd changed my mind. But the memory of his eyes, dark and uncompromising, stopped me. Dominic Russo wasn't a man who accepted no for an answer. "Mama?" Lily's voice pulled me back to the present. "Play now?" I forced a smile. "Not right now, sweetheart. We need to get ready. We're going to meet someone." 30 minutes wasn't much time. I bathed Lily as quickly as possible, dressing her in her cleanest outfit, a purple corduroy jumper with a white turtleneck underneath. Her fancy clothes, we called them. I brushed her curls into some semblance of order and secured them with a matching purple headband. For myself, I didn't have many options. Most of my clothes were either waitress uniforms or worn-out casual wear. I settled on a simple black dress, the only professional-looking item I owned, paired with a cardigan to hide how the dress had been taken in multiple times as I'd lost weight over the past year. At precisely 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Car waiting." I gathered Lily, her diaper bag, and the small backpack that contained her few toys and books. With one last glance around our apartment, I locked the door behind us. The same black SUV from last night idled at the curb, but it wasn't Antonio who stepped out to meet us. This driver was younger, leaner, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Moretti," he said, opening the rear door. "I'm Leo. The boss sent me to collect you and the little one." I hesitated, clutching Lily closer to my chest. She squirmed, already reaching for the interesting new car. "It's okay," Leo said, his voice gentler than I'd expected. "Car seat's already installed." Sure enough, I could see a top-of-the-line car seat in the back, the kind that cost more than a week of my salary. "How did he—" I began, then stopped. Of course Dominic would have found out Lily's age from someone at the restaurant. The car seat was just good business, ensuring his new assistant's child arrived safely. At least, that's what I told myself as Leo helped secure Lily in the seat. She was delighted with the new arrangement, babbling happily and kicking her feet against the leather upholstery. "Where are we going?" I asked as we pulled away from the curb. Leo's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. The boss's house, in Westchester. Westchester, where the mansions were, where people like me only went to clean houses or deliver packages. The drive took nearly an hour, during which Lily alternated between excited observation of the passing scenery and drowsy nodding. I watched as the urban landscape gradually transformed into rolling green hills and gated properties. When we finally turned onto a private road, I felt like we'd entered another world entirely. Dominic's house was more like a small castle. Nestled among old-growth trees, the stone mansion rose imposingly against the blue morning sky. A circular driveway led to a massive front entrance, where two men in suits stood at attention. "We're here," Leo announced unnecessarily, pulling up to the front steps. Before I could move, one of the suited men opened my door. "Ms. Moretti," he greeted me with a nod. "The boss is waiting in the study. Let me help you with the little one." I unbuckled Lily, who had woken up and was now staring wide-eyed at the enormous house. "Big," she whispered, pointing. "Yes, very big," I agreed, taking her hand as we climbed the steps. The entrance hall was a cavernous space of marble and dark wood, with a sweeping staircase dominating one wall. Art that looked expensive enough to fund a small country adorned the walls, and a crystal chandelier the size of my entire kitchen hung from the ceiling. "This way, please," our escort said, leading us down a hallway lined with more artwork. Lily's shoes squeaked on the polished floor as she toddled alongside me, her free hand reaching out to touch everything within her reach. I kept a firm grip on her, terrified she would break something worth more than our lives. We stopped before a set of double doors, which the man opened without knocking. "Ms. Moretti and her daughter, boss." The study beyond was like something from a movie. Leather-bound books lining the walls, a massive desk of dark wood, and tall windows overlooking manicured gardens. Dominic stood by one of these windows, his back to us, a phone pressed to his ear. He was dressed more casually than yesterday, in dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. "We'll discuss this later," he said into the phone. His voice clipped. "My appointment is here." He turned as he pocketed the phone, and I was struck again by how handsome he was, in that dangerous, untouchable way that warned rather than invited. His eyes found mine first, then dropped to Lily, who was partially hidden behind my legs. "Sarah," he said, crossing the room with fluid grace. "Thank you for coming." As if I'd had a choice, he stopped a few feet away, his attention now fully on my daughter. He crouched down to her level, his expression softening in a way I wouldn't have believed possible. "And you must be Lily," he said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it before. Lily peered around my leg, assessing him with the solemn judgment of a 2-year-old. Then, to my horror, she stepped forward and placed her small hand on his cheek. "You sad?" she asked, with the disarming directness only children possess. Dominic looked startled for a moment. Then something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "Sometimes," he admitted, with what seemed like genuine honesty. "But not right now." Lily nodded, as if this made perfect sense to her. "I have cookies?" she asked, switching topics with toddler logic. Dominic laughed, a rich sound that transformed his face. "As a matter of fact," he said, straightening up, "I believe Mrs. Alvarez has prepared breakfast for both of you, including cookies." He pressed a button on his desk, and moments later, a middle-aged woman in a simple black dress appeared at the door. "Mrs. Alvarez, please take Ms. Moretti and Lily to the breakfast room." He turned to me. "Eat first, then we'll talk business." It wasn't a request. Mrs. Alvarez had a kind face and efficient movements. She led us through the house to a sunny room overlooking a pool and gardens. A table was already set with enough food to feed 10 people. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, pancakes, and yes, cookies artfully arranged on a plate. Lily's eyes widened. "All for me," Mrs. Alvarez laughed. "Eat whatever you like, Pequeña. The boss said to make sure you had plenty of choices." I helped Lily into a chair boosted with cushions, trying not to think about what this breakfast alone must have cost. As she happily demolished a chocolate chip cookie, I picked at a croissant, my appetite dampened by anxiety. "Why are we here, Mrs. Alvarez?" I asked quietly. The housekeeper gave me a measured look. "The boss doesn't share his reasons with me, but—" She hesitated. "He's been different since yesterday, more focused, like when he's planning something important." "Planning what?" She shook her head. That's for him to tell you, but I will say this. She leaned closer. In the 15 years I've worked for Mr. Russo, I've never seen him bring a child into this house. I didn't know if that was meant to reassure or terrify me. After we'd eaten, Lily with enthusiasm, me with reluctance, Mrs. Alvarez led us back to Dominic's study. This time, he was seated behind his desk, papers spread before him. He looked up as we entered, his eyes lingering on Lily's chocolate-smeared face. I see someone enjoyed breakfast, he observed, the corner of his mouth quirking up. Mrs. Alvarez stepped forward. If you don't mind, boss, I could take the little one to the playroom while you and Ms. Moretti talk. I stiffened. I prefer to keep her with me. Dominic studied me, his expression unreadable. The playroom is just down the hall, Sarah. You can see it from here. He gestured to a monitor on his desk showing a colorful room filled with more toys than Lily had ever seen in her life. Mrs. Alvarez raised 5 children of her own. She's more qualified than either of us. The way he included himself in that statement caught me off guard. 10 minutes, he added. That's all I ask. I looked at Lily, who was already reaching for Mrs. Alvarez's outstretched hand, drawn by the promise of toys glimpsed on the screen. 10 minutes, I agreed reluctantly. As they left, Dominic rose and came around the desk, leaning against it just a few feet from where I stood. Up close, I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, suggesting he was older than I'd first thought. Maybe late 30s, rather than early 30s. You're wondering why you're here, he said, cutting straight to the point. Among other things. He smiled, a quick flash of white teeth. Directness. Good. That's a quality I value in an assistant. He picked up a folder from his desk. Your resume. I frowned. I never gave you my resume. No, you didn't. He opened the folder. Sarah Elena Moretti, born in Providence, Rhode Island. Father deceased when you were 12. Mother remarried and moved to Arizona 3 years ago. Graduated summa cum laude from NYU with a degree in business administration. Worked at Foster & Klein Financial for 2 years before taking maternity leave. He looked up. And then nothing. You fell off the grid for nearly a year before resurfacing as a waitress at my restaurant. My mouth had gone dry. You investigated me. I investigate everyone who works for me. He set the folder down. What I can't figure out is why someone with your qualifications and experience is serving pasta instead of running a department somewhere. I crossed my arms, suddenly feeling exposed. Maybe I like serving pasta. No, you don't. His eyes held mine. You're exhausted, undernourished, and one missed payment away from eviction. The question is why? I took a step back, unnerved by how much he knew about my life. Have you been watching me? Not personally. He seemed unconcerned by my discomfort. But when one of my employees faints in my restaurant, I make it my business to find out why. In less than 24 hours, I challenged. A slight shrug. I have resources. The casual way he said it reminded me of exactly who I was dealing with. This wasn't just about a job offer. Dominic Russo wanted something from me, and I needed to understand what before I got in any deeper. What do you really want from me, Mr. Russo? Dominic, he corrected automatically, and I told you, I need an assistant. You could hire anyone for that position. Someone with recent experience, someone without a child, someone who didn't just collapse from exhaustion. I shook my head. Why me? He pushed away from the desk, moving to the window. For a moment he was silent, looking out at the manicured grounds. When he turned back, his expression had hardened. Because I knew your father, the words hit me like a physical blow. My father died 13 years ago. I'm aware. His voice was emotionless. Vincent Moretti was more than just a construction worker, Sarah. He worked for my family, for my father. I stared at him, trying to process this information. My father, the man who'd coached my soccer team, who'd read me stories every night, who'd taught me to ride a bike, had worked for the Russo crime family? It seemed impossible. You're lying, I whispered. I have no reason to lie. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then held it out to me. This was taken at my sister's wedding. I was 15. With shaking hands, I took the phone. The photo showed a younger Dominic in a tuxedo, standing next to a man in his 30s. My father. They were smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, caught in a moment of genuine camaraderie. I hadn't seen my father's face in so long that the sight of it made my chest ache. The same dark curls Lily had inherited, the same dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. He was my bodyguard, Dominic continued as I stared at the photo. And more than that, a mentor, a friend. His voice softened. He saved my life twice. The second time cost him his own. I looked up sharply. What are you talking about? My father died in a construction accident. A scaffold collapse. Dominic's expression was grim. Is that what your mother told you? That's what happened, I insisted. But even as I said it, memories surfaced. My mother's refusal to let me view the body. The closed casket at the funeral, the men in dark suits who had watched from a distance, faces impassive. Your father took a bullet meant for mine, Dominic said quietly. The scaffold story was a cover. We paid for the funeral, for your education, for everything. Until you disappeared a year ago. I sank into a chair, legs no longer able to support me. This can't be true. Dominic approached, crouching before me so our eyes were level. When you applied at Bellanota, the name caught my attention. I had you investigated, confirmed who you were. Vincent's daughter. His gaze was intent. I've been looking for you for a long time, Sarah. Why? My voice was barely audible. A debt of honor. Your father protected our family. Now I intend to protect his. The weight of his words pressed down on me. If what he said was true, everything I thought I knew about my father, about my family's history, was a lie. And Lily's father? I asked, a horrible suspicion forming. Did you investigate him too? Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. Daniel Foster. Son of James Foster, of Foster and Klein Financial. His jaw tightened. The man who got you pregnant, then fired you when you wouldn't get rid of the baby. Hearing it stated so baldly made me flinch. How did you? Like I said, resources. He stood, moving back to put some distance between us. What I don't understand is why you didn't come to us. My father would have destroyed Foster for what he did to Vincent's daughter. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling suddenly cold. I didn't know there was an us to come to. My mother never told me anything about my father's real work. After he died, we moved away, started over. I looked up at him. And even if I had known, I wouldn't have wanted that kind of help. No, there was a challenge in his voice. So instead, you chose to struggle alone, to work yourself to exhaustion, to live in an apartment that isn't fit for you or your child. He shook his head. Vincent would be turning in his grave. Anger flared, cutting through my confusion. Don't presume to know what my father would want. I knew him better than you did in some ways, Dominic countered. He was proud, like you, stubborn, like you. But he understood the value of family, of loyalty. Is that what this is about? Loyalty? I stood, needing to be on equal footing. You think because my father worked for yours, I'm somehow obligated to work for you? Dominic's expression hardened. I think I'm offering you a chance to give your daughter a better life. A chance your father would have wanted you to take. The mention of Lily doused my anger like cold water. Whatever else was happening here, she was my priority. Always. What exactly would this job entail? I asked cautiously. Exactly what I said. You'd be my personal assistant, managing my schedule, handling correspondence, organizing travel, all legitimate business. His eyes held mine. Your degree and experience at Foster and Klein make you more than qualified. And the pay? $200,000 a year, plus benefits, a car, an apartment in the city, in a building I own, full childcare for Lily. He named the figure so casually, as if he weren't offering to multiply my current income by 10. And most importantly, protection. I frowned. Protection from what? From whoever's been following you for the past 3 weeks. My blood ran cold. What? Dominic moved to his desk, tapped a few keys on his laptop, and turned the screen toward me. Security camera footage showed the street outside my apartment building. He zoomed in on a dark sedan parked across the street, then on the driver, a man with a forgettable face, watching my building entrance. This was taken 2 days ago, Dominic said. The same car has been there 7 times this month, always when you're at work. Different driver each time. I don't understand. My voice shook. Who would be watching me? That's what I intend to find out. His voice was calm, but I could hear the steel beneath it. In the meantime, you and Lily will stay here, where I can ensure your safety. Stay here? I echoed. No. Absolutely not. Dominic's expression didn't change. It's not a request, Sarah. You can't keep us here against our will, I said, even as I wondered if that was true. This man clearly had the power to do whatever he wanted. I have no intention of keeping you against your will, he said, an edge to his voice. I'm trying to keep you alive. He stepped closer. If I wanted to harm you or Lily, I could have done so at any time. I've known where you were for months. The thought should have terrified me, but strangely, it didn't. Despite everything, some instinct told me Dominic wasn't lying about wanting to protect us. Why didn't you approach me before now? I asked. I respected your choice to stay away from our world. His eyes searched mine. But when you showed up at my restaurant, when I saw how desperate things had become for you, he shook his head. And now with these unknown watchers, I can no longer stand by. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mrs. Alvarez entered, holding Lily's hand. My daughter clutched a new stuffed rabbit, her face glowing with happiness. Sorry to interrupt, boss, but the little one was asking for her mama, Mrs. Alvarez said. Lily broke free and ran to me, arms outstretched. I swept her up, holding her close, breathing in her sweet scent. Look, Mama, she exclaimed, showing me the rabbit. Dom gave me. I glanced at Dominic, surprised. Dom? He shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. It was my sister's. Been in storage for years. The gesture confused me. A man like Dominic Russo giving my daughter a cherished childhood toy? It didn't fit with everything I thought I knew about him. Thank you, I said softly. He nodded, then turned to Mrs. Alvarez. Please show Ms. Moretti and Lily to the East Wing guest suite. Make sure they have everything they need. We're not staying, I said quickly. Dominic's eyes met mine. One night. Give me that much time to arrange proper security at your apartment. His voice softened. Please, Sarah, for Lily's sake, if not your own. I looked down at my daughter, happily playing with her new rabbit, oblivious to the tension in the room. If someone really was watching us, could I take the risk of returning to our unprotected apartment? One night, I conceded finally. And then we talk about this job offer properly, with all cards on the table. Dominic inclined his head. All cards on the table, he agreed. Mrs. Alvarez will show you to your rooms. I have business to attend to, but I'll see you for dinner. He looked at Lily. Both of you, as Mrs. Alvarez led us from the study. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Whatever game Dominic Russo was playing, I was now a piece on his board, and I still wasn't sure if he was protecting me or hunting me. The East Wing guest suite turned out to be larger than my entire apartment, with a master bedroom, a smaller bedroom that had been hastily but thoroughly converted into a child's room, a luxurious bathroom with a tub I could have swum in, and a sitting area with views of the garden. The boss had this prepared this morning, Mrs. Alvarez explained as she showed us around. He sent Leo shopping for the little one. I stared at the toddler bed with its princess canopy, the bookshelf filled with children's books, the toy chest overflowing with brand new toys. All of this was purchased today? Mrs. Alvarez nodded. The boss is very thorough. That was one word for it. Overwhelming would be another, terrifying, perhaps a third. There are clothes for both of you in the closets, she continued. If anything doesn't fit, let me know. I opened the master bedroom closet to find it filled with women's clothing in exactly my size. Everything from casual wear to formal dresses, all with designer labels I'd only seen in magazines. This is too much, I said, closing the closet door firmly. Mrs. Alvarez gave me a sympathetic look. The boss doesn't do things halfway, Ms. Moretti. It's best to accept that now. After she left, I sat on the edge of the massive bed, watching Lily explore her new room with unbridled delight. She was too young to question this sudden abundance, this strange new place. She only knew she had new toys, a soft bed, and her mother nearby. But I had questions. So many questions. Dinner was served in a formal dining room that could have comfortably seated 20 people. though only 3 places were set at one end of the polished mahogany table. Lily was delighted by the booster seat that had appeared, custom-fitted with her name embroidered on the cushion. I tried not to think about how Dominic had managed to arrange that with just a few hours' notice. I'd found casual clothes in my closet, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than a month's rent, but had stubbornly chosen to wear my own black dress instead. It felt like a small rebellion, a reminder that I wasn't yet part of Dominic Russo's world, despite his attempts to envelop us in luxury. Dominic himself appeared just as we were seated, now dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that made him look even more imposing. He'd clearly come from a meeting, his expression still hard around the edges. But when he saw Lily, something in his face softened. "I hope you've been comfortable," he said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "The rooms are lovely," I replied neutrally, though unnecessary for one night. He chose not to respond to that, instead turning his attention to Lily, who was eyeing the elaborate place setting with fascination. "Do you like pasta, Lily?" he asked. She nodded enthusiastically. "Sketty." A smile ghosted across his lips. "Close enough. Mrs. Alvarez makes the best spaghetti in New York." As if on cue, the housekeeper appeared with a server, bringing out our first course, a simple green salad for the adults and cut fruit for Lily. Throughout the meal, I watched with growing bewilderment as Dominic Russo, reputed Mafia boss, engaged my 2-year-old in conversation, asking her about her favorite colors, purple and yellow, her favorite animals, elephants and now rabbits, thanks to her new toy, and whether she preferred baths or showers. Baths, with lots of bubbles. It was surreal. This dangerous man taking such care with a toddler. More surreal still was how comfortable Lily seemed with him, chattering away as if she'd known him her whole life. Children were supposed to have good instincts about people, weren't they? Yet here was my daughter, completely at ease with a man who had intimidated everyone else I'd seen him interact with. "You're good with her," I observed during a lull in the conversation. Dominic looked up, something unreadable crossing his face. "Children are honest. They don't pretend to be something they're not. Unlike adults? Unlike most people I deal with." He took a sip of his wine. "In my position, genuine interactions are rare." Before I could respond, Lily dropped her fork with a clatter. "All done," she announced, her chin smeared with tomato sauce. "Perfect timing," Dominic said. "Mrs. Alvarez has ice cream for dessert, if that's all right with your mother." Lily turned to me with pleading eyes. "Ice cream, Mama, please." How could I refuse? "A small bowl," I conceded. Mrs. Alvarez appeared to take Lily to the kitchen for her dessert, leaving Dominic and me alone at the massive table. "Now we can talk," he said, his demeanor shifting subtly. The man who had been gentle with my daughter was gone, replaced by the businessman. Or perhaps the Mafia Don. "Have you considered my offer? I have many questions first," I replied, starting with who you think is watching me and why. He studied me for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. "I have 2 theories. Neither is pleasant." He leaned forward slightly. "The first is that it's Daniel Foster's family. Perhaps they've learned about Lily and want to assess the situation. They've had 2 years to do that," I pointed out. "Why now?" "That brings me to my second theory. Someone from my world may have identified you as Vincent Moretti's daughter. There are still those who hold grudges against my family from the old days." A chill ran down my spine. "You think someone might try to use Lily and me to get to you?" "It's possible." His expression hardened. "Which is why I need you both where I can ensure your safety." "By making me your assistant," I said skeptically. "Keeping me close." "Exactly." "And if I refuse?" Dominic's dark eyes held mine. "Then I'll still provide protection, but from a distance. It would be more complicated." He paused. "I'd prefer to have you close." The intensity of his gaze made something flutter in my chest, not entirely fear, which was disturbing in itself. I looked away, trying to collect my thoughts. "Tell me about my father," I said after a moment. "The real story." If the change of subject surprised him, he didn't show it. "Vincent joined my father's organization when I was 10 years old. He'd been a legitimate construction worker before that, but after your mother became pregnant with you, he needed better pay." Dominic's mouth quirked slightly. He started as muscle, but he was smart, loyal, rose, quickly. To become your bodyguard, I supplied. He nodded. By the time I was 14, he was assigned to me personally. Followed me to school, to parties, everywhere. His expression softened with memory. He taught me to fish, to fight, to drive. Things my own father was too busy to do. I tried to reconcile this image with the father I'd known. He never brought any of that home. He wouldn't have. Dominic reached for his wine glass. Vincent was adamant about keeping his family separate from his work, protected. His eyes met mine. He wanted a different life for you, Sarah. An education, legitimate opportunities, which I had, I said quietly. Until Daniel Foster. Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. Yes. Until him. Is that why you investigated him? Because of what he did to me? I investigated him because he hurt someone under my protection, Dominic replied, his voice hardening. Even if you didn't know it, you've been under the Russo family's protection since your father died. I remembered the mysterious checks that had helped with college expenses, the scholarship that had appeared when I needed it most. My mother had never explained where the money came from, and I'd been too grateful to question it. The protection stopped when I got pregnant, I observed. It didn't stop. You disappeared. There was a hint of accusation in his tone. Changed your phone number. Moved without leaving a forwarding address. Even your mother claimed not to know where you were. Because I'd been too ashamed to tell her the truth. Too determined to handle things on my own after the disaster with Daniel. I needed a fresh start. You needed help, Dominic corrected. The kind of help your father would have expected me to provide. The weight of obligation in his words troubled me. So this job offer, this protection, it's all to repay a debt to my father? Dominic was quiet for a moment, his eyes never leaving mine. It started that way, he finally admitted. But now that I've met you, met Lily. He paused. Let's just say my motivations have become more personal. The implication hung in the air between us. I felt my cheeks warm under his steady gaze. Mr. Russo? Dominic, he corrected automatically. Dominic, I conceded. Whatever your motivations, I can't just uproot our lives on your say-so. I need time to think about all this. Time is a luxury we may not have, he said, his voice softening. If someone is targeting you because of your connection to me, they won't wait politely while you deliberate. Before I could respond, Mrs. Alvarez returned with a very sleepy Lily in her arms, her face now clean, but her eyelids drooping. Someone's ready for bed, the housekeeper announced. I stood immediately, grateful for the interruption. I should take her up. Of course. Dominic rose as well. We'll continue our conversation tomorrow. I took Lily from Mrs. Alvarez, cradling her against my shoulder. She smelled of ice cream and soap, her small body warm and trusting against mine. Thank you for dinner, I said, because my mother had raised me with manners, even for Mafia bosses. Sleep well, Sarah. His eyes moved to Lily, softening again. Both of you. As I carried my daughter upstairs, I could feel Dominic's gaze following us until we disappeared around the corner. I'd just finished tucking Lily into her new princess bed when a soft knock came at the suite's door. Expecting Mrs. Alvarez, I opened it to find Antonio, Dominic's stoic bodyguard, standing in the hallway. Ms. Moretti, he greeted me with a nod. The boss asked me to give you this. He held out a thick manila envelope. What is it? I asked, taking it cautiously. Information on Daniel Foster, he replied without expression. And his family. My hand tightened on the envelope. Why would I want this? Antonio's face remained impassive. The boss thought you should be fully informed before making your decision. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Ms. Moretti, I worked with your father for 7 years. He was a good man, the best. With that, he walked away. I closed the door, staring at the envelope in my hands. Part of me wanted to throw it away unopened. I'd spent the last 2 years trying to forget Daniel Foster existed. But another part, the part that had lain awake wondering if I'd missed warning signs, if I could have somehow prevented the devastation he'd caused, wanted to know everything. I sat on the bed and opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, financial statements, text message transcripts, and a detailed report on the Foster family's business dealings. As I read, a cold knot formed in my stomach. Daniel Foster, the man I'd thought I loved, the father of my child, was far worse than I'd imagined. The photos showed him with other women, many other women, during the time we were together. The financial statements revealed massive gambling debts. And most damning of all, the text messages between Daniel and his father discussed me directly. The Moretti girl is pregnant, refusing to get rid of it. Deal with it. We can't afford a scandal before the merger. I'll handle it. Already started the termination paperwork. They had planned to destroy me professionally, to leave me with nothing, simply because my pregnancy was inconvenient for their business plans. I'd thought it was just Daniel being a coward, unwilling to face fatherhood. But it had been calculated, cruel. And there was more. Notes about the Fosters' efforts to track me down after I'd disappeared. A private investigator's report from just 3 months ago, with my address, work schedule, and, most chillingly, photos of Lily playing in the park with Mrs. Patel. The final page of the report was a summary of the Fosters' current financial situation. They were in trouble, facing bankruptcy after a series of failed investments. Daniel's father had been diagnosed with cancer, and they were looking for any leverage they could find against their competitors, including perhaps a grandchild they'd previously rejected. I sat back, letting the papers fall to the bed. If Dominic's information was accurate, and something told me it was, the people watching my apartment might well be working for the Fosters. Not out of any sudden familial feeling, but as a potential tool in their desperate struggle to save their company. The thought of Daniel or his father anywhere near Lily made my blood run cold. A soft sound from the adjacent room drew my attention. I quickly gathered the papers, shoved them back in the envelope, and went to check on Lily. She was sleeping peacefully, her new stuffed rabbit clutched tightly against her chest. Looking at her innocent face, I knew I would do anything to protect her. Anything. Including accepting Dominic Russo's offer. I sank into the rocking chair beside Lily's bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she slept. The luxury surrounding us was seductive. The soft bed, the beautiful clothes, the abundant food. More than that, the security Dominic offered was something I couldn't provide on my own. But at what cost? Working for Dominic would mean entering his world, a world my father had apparently tried to keep separate from his family. It would mean accepting his protection, but also his control. And based on the way he'd looked at me over dinner, perhaps his interest as well. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a confusing shiver of something like anticipation through my body. I shook my head, trying to clear it. I was exhausted, emotionally overwrought from all the revelations of the day. I wasn't thinking clearly, but one thing was crystal clear. I couldn't go back to my old apartment, not with the Fosters potentially watching, not with Lily's safety at stake. For tonight, at least, we were staying right where we were. Tomorrow, I would give Dominic my answer, and hope I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. Morning light filtered through the gauzy curtains, painting the unfamiliar room in a soft golden glow. For a moment, I was disoriented. The luxurious bed and elegant surroundings foreign to me. Then yesterday's events came rushing back. The revelations about my father, Dominic's offer, the disturbing information about Daniel Foster. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, checking the time. 7:30 a.m. Lily would be awake soon. I needed to make my decision before facing Dominic again. As if summoned by my thoughts, a soft knock came at the door. I slipped on the silk robe that had been laid out for me, again, perfectly my size, and went to answer. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the hallway with a silver tray. "Good morning, Ms. Moretti. The boss thought you might like coffee before breakfast." "Thank you," I said, accepting the tray. Is he up already?" "The boss has been up since 5, she replied with a small smile. "He's in his study when you're ready to speak with him." With a nod, she departed. I set the tray on a small table by the window, pouring a cup of the rich, dark coffee. As I sipped, I gazed out at the manicured grounds, thinking about the path that had led me here and the choice that lay ahead. The sudden patter of small feet announced Lily's awakening. She emerged from her room, curls wild from sleep, clutching her new rabbit. "Mama, big house," she exclaimed, as if reminding herself it hadn't been a dream. I smiled, lifting her onto my lap. Yes, sweetheart. Big house. Dom here? She asked, looking around expectantly. The ease with which she'd taken to Dominic still unsettled me. He's working, baby. We'll see him later. After we were both dressed, me in my stubborn black dress again, Lily in a new purple outfit that made her squeal with delight, we made our way downstairs. A staff member I hadn't met before directed us to a sunny breakfast room, where a buffet of food awaited. As Lily happily munched on fresh berries, I felt a presence in the doorway. Dominic stood watching us, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, his expression unreadable. Good morning, he said, entering the room. I trust you both slept well? Dom! Lily waved enthusiastically, berry juice staining her fingers. He smiled at her, a genuine smile that transformed his face, before turning his attention to me. Have you made a decision, Sarah? Direct, as always. I appreciated that, even as it made my heart race. I need to ask you something first. He inclined his head, waiting. What happens if I say yes, to the job, to everything? What does that really mean for Lily and me? Dominic took a seat across from me, his dark eyes intent. It means you move into an apartment I own in Manhattan. Secure building, doorman, private elevator. You come to work with me Monday through Friday, managing my legitimate business affairs. Lily attends the best preschool in the city, with security I personally vet. He paused. It means you're under my protection, completely. And what does that protection entail exactly? Whatever it needs to, he answered simply. Security personnel, drivers, background checks on everyone who comes near you or Lily, financial security, medical care, everything. It sounds like we'd be living in a very elegant cage, I observed. Dominic's expression hardened slightly. I prefer to think of it as a fortress. The world is dangerous, Sarah, especially for someone with your connections. Connections to you mean. And to your father, and now potentially to the Fosters. His voice remained calm, but I could hear the steel underneath. Did you read the file I sent? I nodded, unable to suppress a shiver at the memory. They've been watching Lily. Yes. A single word, laden with meaning. And you think they might try to take her? The possibility had kept me awake half the night. Dominic leaned forward, his eyes never leaving mine. I think Daniel Foster is a desperate man from a desperate family. People in that situation make reckless choices. Like claiming a child they previously wanted nothing to do with, I whispered. Exactly. He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. I can stop them, Sarah, but only if you let me. I looked at Lily, happily oblivious as she arranged berries into patterns on her plate. The thought of Daniel or his father anywhere near her made my blood boil. If I say yes, I began carefully, I need some conditions of my own. Something like respect flickered in Dominic's eyes. Name them. I want to be involved in all decisions regarding Lily's security, no measures implemented without my knowledge or consent. He nodded. Reasonable. I want financial independence. My salary goes into an account only I control. And I want a savings fund established for Lily's future, one that can't be touched by anyone, including you. Done. I need to know exactly what my job entails. No surprises. No additional duties sprung on me later. At this, Dominic's mouth quirked slightly. You'll be my personal assistant, Sarah. Nothing more, nothing less. Unless... His eyes held mine. Unless something else develops between us naturally. Heat crept up my neck. That's not part of this agreement. No, he agreed, his voice softening. That would be entirely separate. I forced myself to continue. Most importantly, I need to know the truth. About everything. No more secrets about my father, about your business, about the threats we might face. I took a deep breath. I need to know exactly what world I'm entering. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, considering. Finally, he nodded. Complete transparency. You have my word. Your word, I repeated. Is that something I can trust? Ask anyone who knows me, Sarah. My word is the one thing that's never for sale. His expression was solemn. When I make a promise, I keep it. Always. I believed him, which was perhaps the most surprising realization of all. Despite everything, His reputation, his power, the dangerous world he inhabited. I believed Dominic Russo would keep his promises to me. Then yes, I said quietly. We accept your offer. Relief flickered across his face, so brief I almost missed it. Good. He stood. All business now. I'll have Antonio pack up your apartment today. Is there anything specific you want him to prioritize? I thought of our small home, with its shabby furniture and thin walls. There was little there worth salvaging except for Lily's few treasured toys and my small box of family photos. Just the personal items, I said. Photographs, Lily's favorite stuffed animals, the elephant on her bed. Antonio will handle it personally. Dominic pulled out his phone, typing quickly. I'll arrange for your new apartment to be ready by tomorrow. In the meantime, you'll stay here. And when do I start work? I asked, still trying to absorb how quickly everything was changing. Monday. His eyes met mine. But first, there's something I need to take care of. The intensity of his gaze sent a shiver down my spine. The Fosters? Leave that to me. His voice was quiet, controlled, and more frightening for it. Dominic, I said carefully, whatever you're planning, don't worry, he interrupted. I won't do anything that would upset Lily's mother. It wasn't exactly the reassurance I'd been looking for, but I understood the message. Dominic would handle the Fosters in his own way, but he would keep his methods within boundaries I could live with. Dom, Lily called, breaking the tension. Look. She proudly displayed her plate, where she'd arranged strawberries and blueberries into a crude, smiley face. Dominic's expression softened as he turned to her. Very artistic, Lily. You have a good eye. She beamed at his approval, and I felt another piece of my resistance crumble. Whatever else Dominic Russo might be, he was genuinely kind to my daughter. That counted for more than I wanted to admit. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. True to his word, Dominic had Antonio retrieve our personal items from the apartment. Mrs. Patel was informed that Lily and I had received an opportunity we couldn't refuse and would be moving immediately. A generous check, far more than I actually owed her for babysitting, was delivered with our thanks. Meanwhile, I received a crash course in Dominic's business empire. The legitimate side was vast: real estate holdings, restaurants, shipping companies, technology investments. The other side, well, Dominic was forthcoming but not explicit, and I was grateful for that partial opacity. By Monday morning, we were settled into our new apartment, a stunning 3-bedroom penthouse on the Upper East Side, with views of Central Park and security features that would have impressed the Pentagon. Lily had a room that made her previous princess accommodations look austere, complete with a child-sized canopy bed, a dress-up corner, and shelves filled with books and toys. My new workspace was equally impressive. A corner office in Dominic's midtown building, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private bathroom. My assistant's desk outside was occupied by a capable woman named Gina, who treated me with a mixture of respect and wary curiosity. The boss has never had a personal assistant before, she confided on my first day. Usually just works with his consigliere, Mr. Vega. I filed that information away, another piece in the puzzle of why Dominic had created this position specifically for me. On my 3rd day, as I was organizing Dominic's calendar for an upcoming business trip to Chicago, his private line rang. Only a select few people had that number, and I'd been instructed to always put those calls through immediately. Mr. Russo's office, I answered. It's done, came Antonio's voice. The boss wants you to meet him at Cipriani at 7. He'll send a car. What's done? I asked. But Antonio had already hung up. I learned the answer that evening when I arrived at the exclusive restaurant to find Dominic waiting at a private table in the back, looking satisfied in a way I hadn't seen before. The Fosters are no longer a concern, he said without preamble as I took my seat. My heart skipped. What does that mean? What did you do? Dominic's expression remained calm. Nothing violent, if that's what you're worried about. I simply leveraged their desperation, meaning I bought their company. He said it casually, as if purchasing a multi-million-dollar financial firm was an everyday occurrence. They had no choice but to sell. The alternative was bankruptcy. I stared at him. You bought Foster & Klein? Just like that? The purchase agreement included several non-negotiable clauses. Dominic took a sip of his wine. Daniel Foster has accepted a position with a firm in Singapore. He leaves next week. His father is retiring to Arizona for his health. His eyes met mine. Neither of them will ever contact you or Lily. Ever. It's in writing, with penalties that would destroy them completely. I felt lightheaded, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over me. You did this for us. I did this for you, he corrected softly. For Vincent's daughter. For Lily's mother. The intensity in his gaze made me look away. Thank you, I said, the words wholly inadequate for what he'd done. There's more. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. Inside was a legal document, a trust fund established for Lily, with me as the trustee until her 25th birthday. The amount listed made me gasp. $5 million? I whispered, shocked. With investments that will triple it by the time she's ready for college, Dominic said matter-of-factly. Consider it my contribution to her future. I can't accept this, I said, pushing the envelope back toward him. It's too much. Dominic didn't touch it. It's not a gift, Sarah. It's what's owed to Vincent Moretti's granddaughter. His voice softened. It's what your father would have wanted for her. I felt tears prick at my eyes. You barely know us. I know enough, he said simply. Then, surprising me, he reached across the table and took my hand. I knew your father. I'm coming to know you, and I hope in time you'll come to know me as well. The warmth of his hand around mine was comforting in a way I hadn't expected. For the first time since that night I'd fainted in his restaurant, I allowed myself to really look at Dominic Russo, not as a mafia boss, not as my employer, but as the man who had gone to extraordinary lengths to protect us. What I saw was complexity, power and danger, yes, but also loyalty, honor, and a capacity for tenderness I'd glimpsed in his interactions with Lily. More disconcerting was the growing realization that I was drawn to him, despite, or perhaps because of, all of these contradictions. I'd like that, I admitted softly, to know you better. Something like hope flickered in his dark eyes. He squeezed my hand gently before releasing it. Then we have time. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of our penthouse apartment, watching the sun set over Central Park. Inside, I could hear Lily's giggles as she played with Dominic, a regular occurrence now. He came for dinner 3 times a week, always bringing a small gift for Lily, and treating me with a respect that had gradually, inevitably, blossomed into something deeper. We were taking it slowly, this unexpected relationship. Dominic was patient. Understanding the enormity of the trust I was placing in him, I was cautious, aware of the complexities of his world. But with each passing week, the barriers between us lowered a little more. "Mama!" Lily called, running out to the balcony. "Dom says we can have ice cream," I smiled, catching her as she launched herself into my arms. Did he now? And what does Dom get in return for this generosity? "My dessert drawing," she said proudly, referring to the artwork she created after each meal, a tradition Dominic had started. Dominic appeared in the doorway, watching us with that particular expression he wore only when looking at us, a mixture of protectiveness, affection, and something deeper I was only beginning to name. "She drives a hard bargain," he said, a smile playing at his lips. I had to throw in an extra bedtime story to seal the deal. Quite the negotiator, I agreed, setting Lily down. "Go wash your hands before ice cream, sweetheart." As she darted back inside, Dominic joined me at the railing. The evening breeze carried the scent of his cologne, now familiar, comforting. "I received a report today," he said quietly. "Daniel Foster has requested permission to return to New York for his father's funeral." I stiffened. James Foster had been in declining health for months, but the news still caught me off guard. "When?" "Next week." Dominic turned to face me, his expression serious. "He won't come anywhere near you or Lily. I've made that abundantly clear. But I wanted you to know. 6 months ago, the news would have terrified me. Now, with Dominic beside me, with the security and stability he'd brought into our lives, I felt only a distant sadness for what might have been. "Thank you for telling me," I said. Dominic studied my face. "You're not afraid?" It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Not anymore. Something like satisfaction crossed his features. Good. He reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. Sarah, there's something else I've been meaning to ask you. My heart quickened at his tone. Yes? The charity gala next month. I'd like you to attend as my date, not my assistant. His eyes held mine. Officially. I understood what he was asking. Until now, we'd kept our growing relationship private, separate from his business world. Going public meant stepping fully into his life, accepting all that came with it. People will talk, I said softly. Let them. His voice was firm. I'm tired of pretending you're just my employee when you've become so much more. And what have I become, Dominic? I asked, needing to hear him say it. He moved closer, his free hand coming up to cup my cheek. Essential, he said simply. To me. To my life. From inside, we heard Lily calling that her hands were clean and ice cream was waiting. Dominic smiled, but didn't move away. We should go in, I said, though I made no effort to step back. In a moment. His eyes searched mine. Your answer, Sarah? Looking up at him, this complex, dangerous, honorable man who had reshaped our world. I realized the decision had already been made, perhaps from that first night in his office, when he'd found Lily's photo in my pocket. Yes, I said, rising on tiptoes to press a soft kiss to his lips. As your date, as whatever comes next. His smile was slow and satisfied as he pulled me closer. Whatever comes next, he agreed. We have time. And as we went inside to join Lily for ice cream, I knew he was right. The path that had led me to Dominic Russo had been unexpected, even frightening at times. But looking at my daughter's happiness, at the security and possibility that now surrounded us, I couldn't regret a single step. We had built something I never expected. A family, forged from danger and protection, from obligation and choice. It wasn't conventional, and it certainly wasn't what my father might have planned for me. But somehow, I thought he would understand. After all, he had chosen this world too, for reasons of his own. And in the end, it had led his daughter and granddaughter back to the protection of the Russos, back to Dominic, who looked at us now with the fierce devotion of a man who had found something worth any price to keep safe. Whatever the future held, we would face it together, and that perhaps was the greatest security of all.